This video is all about teaching our children to eat well. Current healthy food education largely revolves around fear, which means that the majority of the time when we think about eating well, we normally think about big sacrifices to avoid things like cardiovascular disease, stroke, and diabetes, and becoming overweight. But I believe that through proper education, we can empower our children to avoid some of the things that have driven our behavior and actually allow them to have a healthy relationship with both healthy food and junk food, to figure out where the balancing line is between those two and to help themselves to live a life that's free of fear and full of good choices without being driven by consequence all the time. So if you're not already there, I want to encourage you that this is the moment that we're going to shift away from trying to get our kids' behavior to change through fear and instead empowerment. The first thing you want to do with your child is to define a keyword. Now, every child has their own keyword, so you're going to have to spend a little time digging, but a keyword is basically the thing that they want. So in one of my children's case, their keyword is that they want to be fast. And I know that about them. They'll do just about anything to try to get faster. So when I'm approaching them about food, I don't approach the food necessarily in terms of healthy or unhealthy food. I say, hey, this is fast food and this is slow food. Maybe your child's keyword is that they want to be smart. So you could say something as easy as, hey, this is smart food and this is dumb food. Maybe they want to grow big muscles and you can say, hey, this is big muscle food and this is small muscle food. But ultimately, this goal of eating healthy has to be relatable to the child. The major pitfall that you want to stay away from is using body image as a keyword. You don't want to tell a kid, this is fat food and this is skinny food, or this is pretty food and this is ugly food. I have personally seen those keywords create long-term detrimental effects in kids as they start to go through their teenage years. The next thing you want to do is to teach your child about how your body uses macros. This may seem like a pretty complex topic to cover, but it's actually pretty simple, and I'm going to show you how. Part of the reason this is so important is that your child will actually be amazed when they find out about how their body takes these large food items and breaks them down into tiny little molecules to build your body to be healthy and strong. You can start the conversation like this. Say, hey, did you know that your body uses different types of food to help make you enter the keyword? And they'll say, no, how does it do that? And you can say, well, it's simple. There's really three major types of food that are called macronutrients. Those are big nutrients that help to build your body. Those are proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. If they're not already bored by you, the next thing that they're going to ask is, well, what's a carb, protein, and a fat? Regardless of if they ask that question or not, sometime you'll be eating and you can say, hey, that's a carb, or that's a fat, or that's a protein. Next step is to help them understand how those different elements of food actually affect your body and help to build a healthier you long term. So if you're sitting at the dinner table and let's say you're having chicken for dinner, you can look down and say, hey, did you know that chicken is protein? And they'll say, no. We'll say, well, what does protein do in the body? Well, protein helps you to build strong muscles, or insert keyword. You might be eating some fruits or some breads, and you can look and you can say, hey, did you know that that's called a carbohydrate? Do you know what carbohydrates do in your body? No, I don't. Well, your body breaks down those carbohydrates and creates energy for you to be able to run around. So mommy and daddy don't necessarily need as many carbohydrates as you do because we're not running around as much as you are. But you've been outside playing for like 4 or 5 hours and your body might need more carbohydrate to fuel. As far as fats, you could point to an avocado or some of the oils that you're cooking in the pan. You could say the same thing. Do you know what fats do for your body? Most likely they'll answer no, and in that case you can say, well, fats help for long-term energy, and they also help to restore your brain and help to restore your body after you've been playing all day long. The next step you can take is to help get them involved with planning meals. Sometimes meals for the whole family and sometimes meals just for themselves. So when you go to plan out your dinner, you can bring a child along and say, hey, we're going to plan out dinner. This is what I'm doing. What do you think? They'll sit down, they'll look at the dinner, you can say, do you remember what the healthy parts of a meal are? And you can talk about having a certain amount of carbs, fats, and proteins to make a healthy meal. Or a great opportunity is when they say, hey, what's for dinner? Because I know every parent hears that every single day of their lives. You can say, I don't know yet. What do you think we should make for dinner? And then get them involved with the process. When they start seeing how much is actually involved with planning a meal, they'll start getting more interested in what you're doing and hopefully ask more questions in the long term. Not only that, but you're going to empower them in the future to think back about when their parents were creating a meal, and they will undoubtedly lean back on some of those. Another great opportunity that we've taken is that my children, since about 5 or 6 years old, have been packing their own lunches for school. Now, that's not to say that we just throw a lunchbox at them and have them start packing, but we'll give them the lunchbox and we'll say, okay, now it's time for you to pack. They'll say, well, what should I pack? And we've talked about this, so I'll say, what makes a healthy meal? And they will tell me a fruit, a vegetable, some kind of protein, and then we let them have some kind of chips, pretzels, or something like that for more carbohydrate. They know if they follow this simple rule, they can create a meal on their own and they feel very empowered by it. The last point that we're going to talk about is to teach your children how to manage junk food. Now, often our knee-jerk reaction when it comes to junk food is just either letting them have it or not letting them have that. But it's important to help children understand that it's not just that junk food is a bad thing for you all the time. It's important for them to understand that yes, I can have some junk food and still be fine, but if I have too much, it'll start to work against me and I'll start to feel bad. In our case, we will sometimes allow our children to have too much junk food, times like Halloween or birthday parties. Because they eat so healthy as a whole, oftentimes if they overload on sugar, they'll end up feeling really, really bad. And so we bring that to their attention, but we allow them to make that choice. So let's say that we're having an all-night gaming party, which we had for my oldest son recently. I went to the store, we bought all the candy he wanted, and we put it all on the table, and I said, dude, here's the deal. You can have as much of this candy as you want to because this is a birthday party and I want you to have fun. But I also want you to pay attention to how you feel. Because if you start having too much candy, you'll start to notice that this will go from fun to bad really quickly. And I don't think you want to feel bad, right? Say no. Say, okay, great. Remember that having some junk food is fine and having some events like this is totally fine. But if you overload it, your body will tell you, and you need to listen to your body. Teach your children that having junk food is okay, but having too much is not. And that way, even as they grow, they won't have this adverse reaction to junk food, but they'll be able to understand, okay, I'm going to make an educated decision to purposely overload on candy, or I'm going to choose to have a bite or 2 bites and then be done. So take these tips, use them with your children, start to implement a healthy lifestyle with them, and remember that empowering your children above all is one of the absolute best gifts that you can possibly give them for the long term.